Oh, as soon as I move my mic, I get the disturbance. Jesus Christmas.
What a start. It's a ghost. It's a ghost.
It's a
Ooh,
spooky
scary.
ghost. Well, welcome
Scary.
back to the ABJ podcast, Tornado Tag, the only show where we seriously debate whether a guy shoots lightning from his hands counts as a technical wrestling move. This episode may not be suitable for children, the faint at heart, or anyone who doesn't like black goo, fireballs, or undead cowboys. Also, this is not safe for work, especially if your boss doesn't appreciate evil clowns, possessed puppets, or worm sacks. So yes, we're back trying some new things out here for the podcast and going in different directions and trying to do different things. Tornado Tag is really going to stay a lot of the same. But the other stuff is starting to roll out, and I'm really proud of it. Some of the stuff quality-wise is not where I wanted to be with the new cameras and trying to figure things out and syncing things up, and it's been a nightmare. But we're getting through it. Some episodes I'm like, that's going to sound terrible, but I want to see the growth too. But also real quick, trigger warnings for this episode: violence, supernatural, possession, creepy imagery, cults, worms, blood, and no one is really uncomfortable. And live burial will possibly be brought up here today as well.
And mummies. There are at least two mummies.
At least two mummies. From the graveyard to the squared circle, wrestling has always walked the line between athleticism and a horror movie theater. And when it comes to spooky gimmicks, no one quite does it like pro wrestling. Tonight, we're counting down the most iconic, terrifying, and flat-out ridiculous paranormal wrestlers of all time, from legends that defined eras to cursed characters that made us go, "Who booked this?" So, BP, give us a little bit of a rundown of what you got prepared, and I have my list. You have your list. We'll kind of bounce around. What do we expect for this episode, Tornado Tag?
Well, we got to play the hits, of course. We got you mentioned a lot of them. You got to play the hits. I think, in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinion, the most successful gimmick ever is a very supernatural gimmick. Most people will tell you the best gimmick wrestler ever was The Undertaker. Let's just say the name up front.
Let's just start it there. Let's go.
So, yeah, let's start with The Undertaker. So, it's an idea that's based on Michael Myers from Halloween. So, a very popular character from horror cinema. Halloween, probably the best horror movie ever, I would say, the original Halloween, in my opinion, at least.
I'm a huge horror fan. Halloween is number one.
I'm not. It's just that the original Halloween is also a very good movie. It's on top of being a horror movie, it's just a very good movie. And so a lot of the early Undertaker, if you don't remember, it's been a long time now. The Undertaker character is almost 35 years old. The Undertaker character will be 35 next year, which is
has it hit
wild.
You yet that has it been weird for you yet to see like Undertaker do podcasts and everything like that?
No, not really. Just because it is weird that he jumped into it so much, because he was very protective of his character. He was one of those guys like the Undertaker. Being the Undertaker has made me a lot of money. I'm going to take this very seriously. I'm going to not be as open as some of my contemporaries when it comes to peeling back the curtain. Even most famously, the thing that kind of started all that was the movie Beyond the Mat that came out about 25 years ago now. Yeah. And The Undertaker is very famously not really in the movie. Steve Austin's only in it for a little bit. Bret Hart's only in it for a little bit. It centers WWE-wise, it centers around Mick Foley. But The Undertaker, I think, is only in it because with his back turned, he's sitting in a little cubby, like on the phone, and that's it. Like, and he's not speaking, and that was because he went to the director and he's like, "I'm not really into this. I'm not really wanting to be a part of this." Kind of like how certain people you could tell didn't show up in WWE Unreal because, not my thing. Not my thing. So he had a fairly successful run as Mean Mark Callis in WCW. He was a skyscraper. He was doing some singles stuff, but the time came where he's ready to jump ship. And a lot of the genesis of The Undertaker is going to be at the feet of Bruce Pritchard, a Brother Love, The Undertaker's original manager. In fact, and this is a little bit of a prelude, his original name, right? I know this is a very commonly known thing.
Mean Mark Callis?
No, as The Undertaker. It wasn't just The Undertaker.
Was it the Dead Man?
It was Kane the Undertaker.
Oh, Kane. That's right. Yeah. Kane the
For the
Undertaker.
for like a week or two, he was called Kane the Undertaker, and that was directly from Bruce Pritchard because Kane is Bruce's son's name.
Yeah.
So that he was really tightly into that. And then, of course, the brother love thing doesn't last very long. He's paired up with Paul Bearer for the early run there. Paul Bearer very much looking the part. He goes from Percy Pringle, who was bleached blonde and wore like very bright Bobby Heenan style suits with glitter and sequins and things like that, to dyeing his hair jet black, wearing
Painting
black,
his face white.
painting his face white. And my favorite part about that, again, very common knowledge, he was an actual like mortician. He was
Yeah.
out of the Air Force. Paul Bearer was an Undertaker.
You know, it's how long did it take you to realize that his name meant actually Paul, like a pallbearer?
Not long, unfortunately, because the Undertaker debuted in late 1990, and then this is a little morbid, but about 3 months after the Undertaker debuted, my father died, and
So you're like, oh, that's what this means.
and they kept talking about pallbearers. I'm like, oh, that's a pallbearer. So yeah, it was pretty early on, even though I was only like
That's
7
a pretty
years old.
depressing way to find out about the gimmick.
Yeah, horrible.
Yikes. Pro wrestling helps us through our dark times.
Right.
Yeah. So he is the original, the dead man, the benchmark, the legend. Some of his abilities range from resurrection to light control, teleportation, and endless mind games. Also big moments for him. He was kind of the guy who coined buried alive matches, Hell in a Cells, casket matches, and Undertaker was pretty much known for his WrestleMania streak, which is a pretty big deal as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I always liked that he could like shoot lightning and all that stuff, but he never did it in a match. Like if I had that power, I would use it all the time.
Yeah,
just like, oh, boom, lightning, you're done. And the only thing I can think is it's like Final Fantasy or a JRPG, a video game, where the Undertaker doesn't have enough magic points to do the lightning a lot. He has to like after he does the lightning, he has to like stay in an inn, and then he can like have enough or take some ether. And then
he has to walk so slow so he could focus his mind on the smoke and keeping the lights off so he can then turn them back on.
Right.
Yeah.
And a lot of that stuff came later. The first few years, his big thing was, oh, he's impervious to pain. You can't hurt him. And then it got tied to the urn. Like Paul Bearer's urn was what gave him that power. Because then they did an angle in 1993 where Mr. Hughes stole the urn. They did that a few times. But the first one was Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes stole the urn. And the Undertaker was all of a sudden more mortal. He could be beaten. And then Kama stole the urn and turned it into chains, and he would always get the urn back. And then when he first came back after the Undertaker versus Undertaker match, he took that big sabbatical in 1994, and comes back against the fake Undertaker. And then they had this huge urn with a giant light in it that Paul Bearer hated because it weighed like 50 pounds, and it had to charge the battery all day. So he did not like that at all.
Some things for me. Taker used to scare the shit out of my friend Justin growing up. Like he was legit afraid of the Undertaker. He was someone I couldn't find a wrestling figure of. Like I had to use other figures and pretend it was the Undertaker, like a spooky Skeletor or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, and that was my Undertaker because we didn't have one.
I think I did have his Hasbro, and then I think it was toward the end of me collecting toys, but I think or action figures. But I also had. He was one of the few Jack Specific. He was like that first line of Jack Specific.
I didn't get a Taker until the bigger figures, the Bone Crunchers and stuff. But man, I loved old Taker. The whole thing with Michael Myers, or the biggest call to Michael Myers or Undertaker, was the sit up, when he would just be down and sit up. That's a Michael Myers thing. That's kind of was like the blueprint of what Taker used the most. But man, there's an old, and I just seen a TikTok reel of it too, where we're just talking about just the greatness of Bret Hart. I'll put him over, but where Bret's wrestling Taker, and he's just beating him down and beating him down and beating him down, and he goes up to the second turnbuckle to do his elbow drop, and when he's up there, Taker sits up on him, and just a small nuance where Bret just goes, like, what more do I have to do to keep the guy down? And it was just genius, like that small little storytelling in the ring, where just like, man, I am outclassing this guy. I'm beating him with technicality. I'm beating him with speed. I'm beating him with strength. but I just can't keep him down. Like, so
and just
good.
some famous angles too, especially early on with the Ultimate Warrior. That was a scary one, and that was when he was like very new. It was like late 1991, early 1992, and Paul Bearer had the funeral parlor, which was like a replacement for Brother Love, because I think it was when Bruce Pritchard got fired.
Yeah.
And he was out of the company for a little bit. And very famous angle where the Warrior is on the Brother Love show and gets attacked from behind by the Undertaker and sealed in the casket, and they lock it. And you can hear the of the oxygen being taken out. And it's like, he's trapped in there. And this is like kids wrestling, and I'm like 8 years old, like what the hell is going on? They're going to kill the Ultimate Warrior. And then you open up the casket lid, and you can see where the Ultimate Warrior is trying to claw his way. The cloth is all clawed. It was so good.
Yeah,
it was so good. And then when they turned him babyface, they did a thing almost like a spin of that, where Jake Roberts slams the casket on the Undertaker's hands and then locks it. And the Undertaker is still coming after him with that slow Michael Myers walk, just dragging the casket with him like he's going to beat Jake with it.
Yeah.
Just some amazing stuff they did with him.
I also really like I may be a man of my own on this one, but I love the Army of Darkness, or the Ministry of Darkness.
Ministry of Darkness. Yeah.
They took characters I didn't give a shit about and just put some eyeliner on them and just did this whole cult thing.
Midian.
But like, yeah, that whole gimmick of the Taker with that big long goatee devil looking beard, like, I like that era. Like, I genuinely it got a little weird with the corporate ministry, but the ministry was cool. That was like the era of stables in pro wrestling.
Yeah, it got NWO'd a little bit. It got NWO'd where it got too big for its own good when they merged that with the corporation. And that was like an audible, I guess, because they did that whole thing where Vince McMahon turns babyface and they start talking about the higher power. And it's like, it's me, Austin. It was me all along. Just popped up in the chat as I was saying it.
Yep.
So originally the plan there, like everybody was at the time was like, oh, it should be Jake the Snake. But Jake wasn't reliable enough. Apparently the plan was Christopher Daniels. They were interested in bringing in Christopher Daniels because he was doing that Fallen Angel gimmick. And then Vince saw him and saw how short he was. He's like, he's not going to be the Undertaker's master. He can't be the Undertaker's higher power. Yeah. And I think he wound up getting signed by WCW right after that.
Yeah. But one last fun fact I have here on my notes is I don't know how, maybe you can fact check me on this, BP.
Okay.
Taker has been killed and reborn at least 9 times on WWE television. Yeah.
That makes sense. He's lost a bunch of buried alive matches. He's had his casket set on fire. He rose to the heavens against Yokozuna after the casket match. I believe they said it was Marty Jannetty dressed as the Undertaker, just raised up to the rafters. No, that sounds pretty accurate.
Yeah. Well, if you did number 1, let me go with number 2. I'll just say my guy. If you want to throw in a little synopsis of his career, I'll let you handle that.
Sure.
But if we talk about the Undertaker, we have to talk about his burned brother, the half horror icon, half pyrotechnician. Kane's abilities were fire summoning, unstoppable rage, pure chaos and energy. Some big moments is his debut at Bad Blood 97, which I still think is
amazing,
awesome. And just years of destruction under Kane. Kane's backstory includes him burning his own parents, but somehow becoming the mayor later on in real life.
Actually, the Undertaker set that fire. They retconned it and said the Undertaker was the one that set the fire.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit of Kane.
And he's actually the Undertaker's half brother, because it turns out that Paul Bearer, who worked
was getting it
in the family funeral home, was going after Mrs. Undertaker.
Oh yeah.
So
and this is why we're not suitable for children and work.
Kane had a few gimmicks before this that were kind of preludes. He was Unabomb in Smoky Mountain, but that wasn't really a scary, spooky gimmick. There's only one scary, spooky gimmick in Smoky Mountain. We'll talk about him later. But he was the Christmas creature in USWA in Memphis. He was Doomsday, which is very much in the vein of the old Lord Humongous or Demolition type gimmicks. And that was all a lead up to being Kane.
Now, was Isaac Yankem scary? I feel he was like a horror dentist.
He was an evil dentist, and
yeah.
I think it was just more like he was a dentist with bad teeth. It wasn't the most well thought out gimmick in the world. It really wasn't.
I kind of put him in a little bit of a spooky. If someone said Isaac Yanken's a spooky character, I wouldn't argue it.
I mean, there was a horror movie called The Dentist. It was
Yeah.
Corbin Burnson was in it. So yeah, I mean, I think because I think when they first brought him in, it was like he would take the light in the vignettes about pulling teeth or drilling people with no Novocaine or things like that. But he never really did it to anybody though, because he never really had an angle, except besides he was Jerry Lawler's heavy to go after Bret Hart. That was the only angle he ever really had.
Yeah.
So they didn't really get a chance to delve into it. But Kane for sure. Kane is a little more psychotic than the Undertaker. He beat one of my favorite Kane things is he goes over the whole history of his when him and Daniel Bryan are in like sensitivity training or like I forget what it was called, but it was Dr. Shelby who has come back a few times. Scorpio Sky is Leonard in there, and I think Kane beats up Leonard, but he goes through his whole history about how he's been married twice, divorced twice. He has an unhealthy obsession with Pete Rose. He electrocuted the testicles of the son of the owner of the company and set the head announcer on fire and all those other crazy things that Kane did. But also a guy who has been heavily retconned because originally it's like, oh, he was in that house fire and he's a burned victim. So that's why all you could really see at first was his one arm because everything else was supposed to be burned.
Yeah.
And then it became later, like when he unmasks, oh, the scars were psychological, but it doesn't really hold up. And obviously continuity and wrestling don't really go together that strongly, but they did a thing in the Attitude Era where the corporation has Kane and his back's to the camera, but they take his mask off and they sell that like Briscoe and Patterson are sickened by how bad his face looks. And so I guess he was supposed to be scarred at one point, and then it just kind of whittled it down to, oh no, it was more of a psychological thing.
Yeah. Man, remember when Taker was under the Kane mask? That got me when I was a kid.
You remember they had a lot of people remember Undertaker versus Undertaker. Fewer people remember Kane versus Kane. It was around the time See No Evil came out. Yeah. And they kept having this whole thing about May 19th because that was the day that was the release date for the movie. But Kane would like flip out if people said May 19th. In fact, they did a thing once where Shawn Michaels like super kicked Rob Conway. He was doing something wrong, Rob Conway. And he puts a shirt on Rob Conway that just has May 19th written all over it. And then Kane comes out and just beats the hell out of him. But when Raw was on, like around that same time, they had another Kane come out. And I think they said the story was supposed to be like, this was the real Kane. And the guy who's been Kane the whole time was like some imposter, some psychopath imposter who had been like just pretending to be Kane. But then that Kane was Doc Gallows.
Yeah.
But it didn't last very long.
Yeah. Yeah. Kane, I like Kane. I like the original Kane, and then like that original like leather mask.
Yeah.
And then when they kind of half cut it, I was like, I didn't really like that too much. But like you said, a lot of stuff had to change with Kane, like the voice box. Like it just became unpractical, and it probably became too much to just travel around and carry. But no, I like the way they developed Kane. And if you want to go with the next pick, one of yours.
So I'm going to go a little obscure. I'm not like ranking these or anything like that, but I want to talk about.
This is definitely not ranking.
I want to talk about some obscure ones, and I kind of this is a 2-for-1 special. I promised mummies, and you're getting mummies. So the first mummy we're going to get was actually from a promotion run by Jim Cornette of all people. Yes, Jim Cornette's promotion had a wrestling mummy, the person who hates all the goofy stuff in wrestling, but it wasn't his idea. So Smoky Mountain Wrestling, Jim Cornette, one of his main investors, was the famous record producer Rick Rubin, who I believe started Def Jam, and then he had like American recordings and things like that. I think he worked with like the Beastie Boys, a lot of other people. And the only thing Rick Rubin really asked for was, we need a mummy. I want a wrestling mummy. So that is how we get Prince Karras. Prince Karras, who is
Why can't we do that on the independent scene? Just be like, you know what PPW needs?
A mummy?
A mummy. Who would be the PPW mummy?
A PPW mummy. Well, it's got to be usually it's somebody that's like a little taller.
Prince Karras, my answer. Just because he can't get any worse, and B, you cover his face. It's a win for everybody.
And who's that?
Logie P.
I knew you were going to say that.
Let's make Logie P a mummy.
A mummy.
A mummy.
I'll take it under advisement.
What else is he really doing? You know what I mean?
Well,
he's a stooge. Just make him a mummy.
He's betraying his friends, is what he's doing. Reluctantly, but he's betraying his friends.
Very reluctantly. Jesus.
Very reluctantly. So Daryl Van Horn is Prince Karras's manager, who is James Mitchell. He winds up going to WCW, where he manages Mortis, who was another not as in-depth spooky character, and it became part of that whole Blood Runs Cold thing, and he managed Wrath and a few other people. And then he goes to ECW, where he's the Sinister Minister, and people just, much like Kevin Sullivan, people at that point just started calling him the Devil, where he would just wear red suits, and he was Father James Mitchell for a long time in TNA with the new church
stable. Didn't he do coke on TV?
Yes, he did. And that was in the NWA. But and a lot of his affectation, awesome. And I'm sure he would be the first to admit this, was very much the Grand Wizard, the legendary manager, the Grand Wizard, where he would talk like this. You can even hear a little bit of that in Paul Heyman lately.
Yep.
Paul Heyman takes a little bit from the Grand Wizard now.
Yeah.
So especially that very beginning, ladies and gentlemen, my name is that's very Ernie Roth. That's very Ernie Roth. So Daryl Van Horn talks about how he went to Egypt, where he studied. He said he studied things like Egyptology, and also he throws in necrophilia in there. Which, hey, Katie Vick. We didn't talk about the Katie Vick storyline, where Kane apparently had a high school sweetheart, and Triple H accused him of after she died in a car crash, he had his way with her. But Prince Karras, he does his incantation that's on a scroll. And I guess the magic words, if you want to summon a mummy, is Wezet Kizance.
Which is Pig Latin.
Yeah. So no, it's more so than Pig Latin. It's Kizarni, who was another Kizarni. Yeah, that's a very short-lived, but that was really a spooky character. It was just a carny, but that's kind of spooky. But they made the whole thing where like, and this was Cornette's kind of push on it. This isn't really a mummy. This is a guy in a mummy suit. He's not a 5,000-year-old immortal mummy. Stop it. But they would do things where, like, he cut his thumb because he wore a full like mummy suit, like bandages and stuff. And they cut his thumb, and sand came out. And they're like, his thumb is like, they would just try to like poo-poo it all over, like Les Thatcher and Dutch Mantel and whoever the announcers were. But then a few years later, you get a more famous mummy. In the immortal words of Tony Schiavone, the Yeti.
I thought you were going to say the Rock. When the Rock became...
No, that was he was the Scorpion King. He wasn't the Mummy.
He was just a mummy with a cooler title.
He was in the Mummy movie, but he was a Scorpion King. I think he was an ancient enemy of the Mummy. So now I'm talking about the Yeti, which is a weird name for a mummy because a Yeti is like a Bigfoot. It's an abominable snowman.
Yeah.
So this happens on I think on Nitro they kept showing like a block of ice with some kind of big thing in it, and then eventually the block of ice exploded, and then after a match with Hulk Hogan and the Giant, the Yeti comes out, and the Yeti is huge. There were rumors that like the first couple of appearances it was Elegante, Giant Gonzalez, but I don't even know if that's true, and almost always it was Ron Reese, who was part of Raven's flock as Reese. He was Ron's stud. He was a very big guy, like a legit 7-footer. And he came out, and the best way to describe what he did to Hulk Hogan is he kind of humped Hulk Hogan from behind in the middle of the ring.
That's what mummies do. They're humpers.
And it's like a chihuahua. They're the chihuahua of scary things.
Yeah.
So that was the original appearance of the Yeti. He had a few more, but then they repackaged him as a ninja.
Logie P, the humping mummy. BP.
He does have chihuahua energy. He
definitely does.
He has significant chihuahua energy. So
it works because he can't wrestle. So, but I'm sure he can hump. You know what I mean?
Very cruel. That's 2 mummies for the price of 1 for everybody.
Yeah. I'll go to the next one. I will I'm not gonna sit here and pretend to you guys as an audience that this was my favorite of all time. I do appreciate the character. I do appreciate the costume. I do appreciate the pageantry. But unfortunately for me, that's kind of where it ends. The promos, the fan theory pissed me off. I'm not gonna lie. But when it got to the time to put on the match, is when this character died for me. And I'm gonna go with a twofer. I'm gonna go Bray Wyatt and the Fiend. I enjoyed Bray Wyatt as the cult leader more than I enjoyed him as the Fiend.
Same here.
I didn't really like the Fiend. I thought the Fiend looked cool. As a horror movie fan, it was fucking cool looking. The aesthetic, the characters, the promos were fun. Like, all of that was great for the Fiend. But when the Fiend had to wrestle, it lost me.
Yeah.
Bray Wyatt as the Swamp cult leader, loved it. I loved
that. As Tom Lawler once called him, a fat dirty wizard. He was a fat dirty wizard.
But the modern horror icon of wrestling, equal parts Stephen King and a Southern cult leader. His abilities were reality manipulation, possession, and mental warfare. His big moments were the Firefly Funhouse match.
Hated it.
With John Cena. And then he also debuted the Fiend there. The mask was also designed by Tom Savini, which I think is super cool because I'm a big Tom Savini fan. And he was the special effects legend behind Friday the 13th, Dusk Till Dawn, Dawn of the Dead. I mean, you name it, he's probably done the special effects.
I got to watch From Dusk Till Dawn again. I like that movie.
Great movie. Lily was just talking about Selma Hayek. And I was like,
the ageless Selma Hayek.
You want to see a Selma Hayek scene? I will show you Dusk Till Dawn.
You want to talk about booking yourself in a strong position? Nobody ever booked themselves in a strong position like Quentin Tarantino. Like, he wrote that. He didn't direct that movie, but he wrote it. And Mr. Foot Guy, had Selma Hayek booked himself to drink off of Selma Hayek's foot.
Yeah, 100%. Well, let's get to the Bray Wyatt. What do you got? What do you got for Bray? What are your takes on him?
Similar to yours, and I want to be respectful here because I do not believe in speaking ill of the dead whatsoever. And
as a human, I'm sure he was great.
Oh yeah,
the character for me.
And you can never take away from Bray Wyatt's creativity or his imagination. I thought some of those Firefly Funhouse skits, like the promos, the vignettes, were excellent, especially early on. But it was always the payoff. The payoff with him was always the problem because those characters are so hard. And I've said it a million times, like, oh, the big scary looking person that doesn't lose and never really sells always gets over. And the Fiend did. The Fiend got over huge. But it's really hard to land that plane because eventually they are going to have to sell and eventually they are going to have to lose. And back in the day, when it was somebody like that, well, when they lost, they just left the territory and then it was on to the next one. But that doesn't really work. And that's actually what wound up happening with Bray Wyatt is eventually the character got a little stale. The character got a little long in the tooth. We kind of ran out of rope and there wasn't really a whole lot we can do. So
and no one really benefited working the character. Like, no one really came out of the feud better than the
one guy
they went in.
One guy, LA Knight, because he became like unfortunately that was Bray Wyatt's final appearance, but LA Knight came out of it pretty good.
Yeah, like the Hell in a Cell match.
Oh, with Seth Rollins, horrible, and that's what those characters are so hard to book because you can't really beat them. And then that's like that Hell in a Cell match that Seth Rollins lost by disqualification and he loses the title a month later anyway. Just have him lose it there.
Yeah,
it's a tough one. And then it was really, really hard, and that really, really hard to do anything outside of it because you always have to one up yourself. You always have to go higher, to the point where one of the last matches we see Bray Wyatt in that Fiend run is a match where Randy Orton basically burns him to death afterward. They took advantage of the pandemic and the Thunderdome and not having a live crowd there that they can just literally set a Bray Wyatt dummy on fire in the middle of the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I mean the last match was cool where he was sponsored by Pitch Black Mountain Dew and he had the
Orbeez,
the paint. He had the paint on where like when the black light hit him, he looked different. I thought that was kind of cool. How do you feel? We'll kind of group them in here with them, but you had Alexa Bliss with him for a while
Mhm.
there, where she was kind of like this possessed character alongside him. I like the Muscle Man skits when he would like kind of poke
Yeah.
fun at reality, where he's like making fun of his own weight and he's the Muscle Man dance and stuff like that. I thought
Yeah.
was good. But then the Wyatt Six, obviously, unfortunately, we lose Bray, and the entire time Bray's alive, and we're like, man, if you're gonna partner Bray up with someone, just put Bo out. Like we were as fans, were like, give us Bo, put Bo with him, and never,
I don't know.
never, never.
I don't know how many fans have ever clamored for Bo Dallas, if I'm being honest.
Well, there was a while there towards the end where they knew Bo was growing his hair out and he was doing some, and everyone's like,
well, when
oh,
the Uncle
maybe
Howdy thing started happening, with that last run of Bray, and they probably would have gotten there if Bray's health hadn't unfortunately turned for the worse. They probably were headed there. The Wyatt Six, I do like that they toned down the supernatural stuff. Preface all this with saying I'm not the biggest fan of all this, because I think wrestling should have a through line. And if your whole show is like Lucha Underground, I have a lot of respect for Lucha Underground, which had a lot of supernatural characters. You had a witch, you had a lot of stuff like that. But the whole show is like, this is a world where anything can happen. And then you have WWE or AEW or places like that where it's like, okay, everybody's normal except for this guy that can shoot lightning, or this guy who can put John Cena in the Phantom Zone, or like, what was the Firefly Funhouse match supposed to be? Were we seeing like a hallucination? Was it real? Like,
no idea.
Yeah, so stuff like that loses me a lot. Yeah. And we haven't had enough podcasts with you and me and some others where in the moment I'm like, yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this Bray Wyatt stuff. And I'm not gonna pretend like I am now, because he has unfortunately passed.
I will say with the Wyatt Six, I do like seeing guys like Dexter Lumis and Gacy and Bo having and Nikki Cross, and have a place to perform and do their thing. I love watching Gacy, so anytime I can see Gacy perform, I'm in.
See, if I want to watch Joe Gacy, I'm just going to go watch that the most illegal thing in the history of wrestling thing again.
Yeah,
which is definitely funny, because like if you're gonna do it, just do it well. Like, because that was silly, and that wasn't even Chikara. There's like a CZW show they did that at.
Yeah,
but it was so entertaining that it's like, okay, well, it gets a pass.
Yeah. All right, what's your next pick or next one you want to talk about?
I'm gonna go again with a little more obscure, and I'm gonna go with some Memphis curiosities. So we were talking about a little bit about this before we went on the air. With Memphis, you had half the year for a lot of times that Jerry Jarrett would book, and you would have well thought out storylines, and things built pretty logically. Personal issues draw money. That was Jerry Jarrett's motto. It was on a plaque in his office, and it was very just good traditional wrestling booking. Memphis was always a little bit out there. They would do a little bit of crazy stuff, but then when Jerry Lawler would get the book for half the year, woo! I
want to spoiler alert real quick for you, BP, and everyone who's listening, and in the future. If I ever get money and we can start our own wrestling company, this is exactly what we're gonna do.
Oh no!
You're gonna book dead serious, really good for half a year, and then I'm broing it out the next half of the year.
So this starts like the late 70s when Lawler starts to buy into the territory, and you have Dr. Frank, not our Dr. Frank, not Dr. Roma Scavenge, gotcha. Not the legend. This is the not legendary Dr. Frank. So
he might be a mummy.
I don't know.
He's been around a long time.
I always say unfrozen caveman doctor.
Yeah.
That's a reference to there was an old SNL skit with Phil Hartman, unfrozen caveman lawyer. That's the origin of that. But this Dr. Frank was literally a Frankenstein monster, bolts in the neck and everything. And this was a monster heel that challenged Jerry Lawler in the late 70s. And then you had a little bit later, you had Tagar, the Lord of the Volcano, who was like a dragon man who was born in a volcano. And I'm probably missing some other ones. And one of his more later run characters, this was more of a through line, not so much spooky, but I think they would do some weird stuff when they would turn him heel. You would have Spellbinder, who was a local wrestler, Del Rios, not Del Rio. Spellbinder was a magician, but he sometimes would act like he would have magical powers. he had a very brief run, like maybe a month run, a few TV appearances in WWE or WWF at the time as Fantasio. And his whole thing was like he would do a small package and like pull the underwear out from the wrestlers under the wrestlers' trunks and things like that. He would do like
his magic ability was taking your underwear off.
Yeah, he could reach in your trunks and pull off your underwear.
Guess what Nate Heater's new gimmick is?
I've talked to Nate many times about Spellbinder and Fantasio.
Nate could take people's underwear off. Is definitely getting booked. That's my half of the year right there. That's my version of Nate.
So yeah, Memphis had its share of very wacky wrestling characters for sure.
I love that. I'm gonna go with one here, and I'm gonna kind of probably take a 3 for here. Around, I mean, there's this trend comes and goes. And when it comes, it comes hot and it comes hard. Another reason why we're not suitable for work. But when vampires get popular, BP, they get real popular. You know,
they sure do.
And we had a really cool vampire trio at one point in time in WWE. The Gothic vampire trio that defended the 1999 goth culture, bloodbaths, supernatural entrances, and vampire immortality.
I had to put my red light on for this.
Yeah.
Spooky.
The music's so good too.
Oh, the Brood music is incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Some of the best music Jim Johnston ever did, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah. Rising from a fiery ring to develop blood-spitting ambushes. When they would do the bloodbaths.
The bloodbath, yeah.
So cool.
Did you ever see the WCW version?
No.
It was, they were doing this is toward the end of WCW, it was like 2000. And the big feud was, they had a group of people called the Millionaires Club. And this was like what they would really call like some of the higher paid guys backstage, like Hogan and Flair and Sting, Luger, DDP, like guys who were probably making $1 million a year or more. So they made that a real stable. And then like the younger, more hungry guys like Billy Kidman and a lot of the Conan, a lot of those younger guys became the new blood. And so they did a thing where Kevin Nash is in the ring. Kevin Nash was part of the Millionaires Club. And he's standing in the middle of the ring, and he was supposed to have blood dropped from the ceiling onto him. And so he's standing there in his FUBU baseball jersey, because it's 2000, he's wearing his FUBU. And the blood falls about 2 feet away from him. And he just has to look there like, what do you want from me? It's WCW. Like,
is this where he just slips and just rolls around in it?
No, I don't think so. I think you're thinking of when they jumped in the pool at Club La Vila, and they're just like flailing around in the pool. Yeah. I don't think he swam in it. But yeah, no, the Brood was a lot of fun. I know we both have had the chance to meet Gangrel. Gangrel is super cool. He's one of the
taking flat back bumps in the fucking Falcon's nest for no reason.
He's a super cool guy though. He's a really fun guy to have in your locker room as well.
And Gangrel legally owns the name the Vampire Warrior.
Yeah, that was his name in his early in his career in Memphis.
Yeah, long before WWE. So he technically owns that that whole bit. All right, what's your next one, BP?
My next one is one that kind of gripped me a little bit because I was like 8 years old. I knew kind of wrestling wasn't on the up and up, but there was still a suspension of disbelief, and then Papa Shango shows up. Papa Shango shows up with a skull with like, I don't know who Baron Samedi was, but like a skull with like smoke coming out of it and making the Ultimate Warrior throw up and making black goo run down his face. And he's about to wrestle a guy and the lights go out and they go back on and the guy's hand's on fire. And it's like, whoa. Again, why wouldn't you do that every match? Why wouldn't you use your voodoo powers every match? Well, he kind of did there for a little bit because they had another guy like his feet were on fire and stuff like that. It was wild.
I got to meet him on an indie show, and he was taking photos with children, and like he's holding his baby, and she just stared at him, and he just like, and she just starts screaming.
Oh yeah, it's so funny that he's since then become. Well, he goes from that to Kama, who's like the serious Street Fighter guy.
Yep.
To the Godfather, who's like this fun-loving,
pimp
and hoes nationwide. Roll a fatty for the pimp daddy.
Yeah.
living
So
that gimmick.
wrestling's voodoo priest with a bone necklace and a bad temper. He was his abilities were curses, voodoo spells, and making the Ultimate Warrior vomit black goo. That you just said.
Well, no, those are two different things. He made the Warrior vomit, and then he made black goo come out of like the Warrior's head, and it came out like Gino. And you watch it back, like the Warrior's wearing a jacket which he never wears, because obviously the jacket is holding like whatever device it is that's going up through his hair and everything like that. Memphis, Steven Chambers in the chat. In Memphis, he was the Soul Taker, which was like a proto Papa Shango. This was like a big time for voodoo gimmicks. And the other one was in Global Wrestling. It was Rasta the Voodoo Man, who I want to say he became, I think he was like in a commercial or so. I think he might have been like Terry Tate office linebacker or something like that. I don't think that was Terry Crews. But I think Terry Crews would have been like Big Rasta, who was another guy with a voodoo gimmick. I guess it was just a popular thing in the early 90s. Like, I don't remember like a movie where voodoo was a big thing back then, but I guess so.
So I have a couple ones I want to throw out to you. I've just like, would you classify these people as paranormal or spooky or horror inspired characters? Where was that first one? Luna Vachon.
Not really. I guess the closest she got to that was when she would be with Vampire Warrior. Like, I think they had a few shots in ECW before Gangrel became Gangrel. Mm-hmm. So she was always like spooky adjacent, or sometimes. But I think she was more of like a freak,
or like a punk, almost like punk. Yeah,
like you would always. Well, actually, how did we go this far without talking about Kevin Sullivan?
We'll circle back. I want to run through a couple possible ones here.
Okay.
The Great Muda.
No.
Even the ability to spit poison.
I guess so, but they always said like some like Japanese. They made up some cock and made me think about like Japanese people had surgery on their glands so they could like secrete.
I still think that's like, I think that teeters on paranormal. Where you can spit poison. Yeah.
Well, actually, no. Yes. And then if you factor in Hustle, then absolutely, because in Hustle, they were able to summon the Great Muda. You would have loved Hustle. They were able to summon the Great Muda from a genie lamp. They threw the lamp down, and all this green smoke comes up. And when the smoke comes down, the Great Muda is there. And then they had a female character, Yinling, I think was her name. And he misted her in the nether regions, and had
a baby.
And well, she laid an egg. And the egg hatched, and it was not the gobbledygooker. It was a giant baby who was played by
the Undertaker.
No, it was I'm going to be the Eggman. He thought he was coming out of the egg. He's like, they're going to make me shave my head, and I'm going to be the Eggman. No, it was Akibono, the famous sumo wrestler. He was from Hawaii, the first American wrestler to reach the rank of Yokozuna, which is like the grand champion of Japanese sumo. Big guy, like 400 pounds, 6'7", and they made him a baby, and he was Bono-chan, and he was the son of Yinling and the Great Muda, because the Great Muda impregnated her with his mist. So yeah, supernatural.
Jake the Snake Roberts. He was almost like borderline serial killer, stalker.
Yeah, that-ish. If you're counting that, yeah, like especially that. Trust me, that Jake Roberts. The Jake Roberts that was in the feud with the Ultimate Warrior, where he locks him in a room with all the snakes. Yeah, that was, and he was getting buddy with the Undertaker. That not supernatural, but definitely like more horror. Of a like horror slasher. In fact, they actually did a gimmick in WCW when Vince Russo was first there, where nobody was getting killed, but somebody was attacking people backstage and wore a Scream mask, or like the whole Scream outfit.
Yeah,
but I guess Warner, Time Warner,
it was probably David Arquette.
It was actually she had not left for WWF yet. It was actually Molly Holly before she was Molly Holly.
Oh wow! And then two more for you. This one probably a little easier. Malachi Black.
Yeah, with
Aleister Black.
Yeah, with the mist thing and AEW more so than WWE, I think it was like he seemed to be able to control people's mind with his mist or some like
yeah. And then the last one, and this is where I'm torn because I think he started off as paranormal, spooky, horror, and then kind of transformed into something completely else. But Gold Dust,
I don't think it was ever paranormal. Like it was just a guy that painted himself up gold. Like
but you didn't get like Buffalo Bill vibes, androgynous, scary.
Not really. Because
Okay.
you remember very early, like you're only like
spying on people. He had cameras everywhere.
Well, it was never confirmed that was him. In fact, they would always say, like, it was never called GDTV. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Yes, it was. Once or twice. But no, I think it was more mind games, and that's more in like the line. And then it very quickly became mind games based on him pretending to be homosexual.
Is Mankind? Mankind's a horror character.
Yeah. It's a famous horror backstory where he's like stuck in a basement with his rat George, which was a reference to Jim Cornette because Jim Cornette had a pet rat named George.
Well, wasn't it really Cornette's rat?
It may have been.
Because I think there's a whole bit that somebody was talking about online where I think Cornette had to call off work. He couldn't be part of a meeting because his pet rat died.
Yeah, George
is like, your rat died. Like, but they said early on the man when Mick's holding the rat in those promos, it was his pet.
Yeah, not so much like he didn't have powers, but yeah, there was definitely a supernatural curve to it. Same thing with Oz. Oz didn't have powers. I just want to mention him because he was on the graphic. Oz was basically Turner got the rights to the Wizard of Oz, so they wound up just having him, Kevin Sullivan, as the wizard, sing "Welcome to Oz" in a very thick Boston accent.
Yeah. Well, let's pay tribute to one that we cannot skip over, and that's Kevin Sullivan,
the Devil, the first guy that they called the Devil. And it's funny because they never brought up Satanism, they never brought up anything like that, just because they had to toe a line. Because remember, this is like the mid 80s. It's Florida. It's a very like kind of conservative area. And so it was always like a higher power and things like that. And he shaved an X in his chest. And it was a more serious version of what later became the Dungeon of Doom, which was, again, very, very spooky tinged, because you had the Purple Haze Mark Lewin, who I think came out of the Atlantic Ocean. And he did have, like, it seemed like mind control powers, and that's where Luna Vachon comes in, because Luna Vachon comes to Florida as a journalist. She's playing a journalist. She's using her real name. It's not Luna Vachon. This is Trudy Hurd, a journalist who's here to cover wrestling, and she falls under the spell of Kevin Sullivan. And they do
the Manson family,
yeah, they did, and like they shave half her head and like she continued rocking with that look, but that's where Luna Vachon came from. Yep. Was Kevin, and same thing with unfortunately no longer with us. Fallen Angel, who was Sullivan's real life wife at the time, and again just under his spell. And it was very, very, very heavily implied that he was a Satanist, but they never came out and said it.
Yeah. Well, we're hitting that marker of the episode. I want to run through some names I have on my list. BP, you can run through some of yours. But I had the Ministry of Darkness, Mordecai, the Boogeyman, Abyss, Rosemary, Kevin Thorne and Ariel, Vampiro, Mil Mortes. But you can go on for days and days and days.
Yeah, most of Lucha Underground.
Yeah. Pentagon Jr., Pentagon Dark, the Vampire Warrior,
which was Gangrel.
Yeah. Black Scorpion, Waylon Mercy,
Sting,
Karma, the Demon, Finn Balor Demon.
I thought you meant the Kiss Demon.
Kiss Demon's on there too.
Yeah.
The Dungeon of Doom. It's not hot. Or it's not.
There's no Hulkamaniacs here. I've never been here before. Yeah.
The Sinister Minister we talked about earlier. Raven. I don't know how much that one falls in though.
No, Raven. Well, in so much as he was a cult leader.
Yeah. Julia Hart, the Missing Link, Black Rain.
That was also Dustin Rhodes. That was the low point of Dustin Rhodes' career. I think he would be the first to say that. You also had Relic, which was Killer spelled backward, as Mike Tenay said every time he mentioned him.
Yeah, and then some other ones: Danhausen, Sue Young, Charles Mason, who on the independent scene I think is doing a pretty good serial killer Jason Bateman role, and then Max the Impaler.
Yeah, They're excellent. They're very
Yeah.
imposing. It's funny you're talking about some of those TNA people. I forgot about the voodoo priestess Roxy Laveau.
Oh yeah.
Roxy Laveau, who was Roxy Laveau was a manager for the Voodoo Kin Mafia, VKM, which was the New Age Outlaws, and get it because VKM is Vince McMahon's initials.
Yeah.
But she didn't do anything inherently spooky, but the thing she's most famous for is when she got out of that like voodoo priestess gimmick, because whatever dye she was using to dye her hair when she was doing that gimmick, she had a severe allergic reaction to it, and she had to shave her head, and so they turned it into a wrestling angle. And even when they're cutting her hair, you can see like she has like most of her scalp is just like a beet red from whatever kind of skin disorder she had. Let's see. We covered a lot of them. I'm trying to think of more like the indies. Oh, the Neo Solar Temple. There's my Ultramantis poster back there.
Ultramantis, yeah. Hollow Wicked and Frightmare.
Well, the whole Eye of Tyr thing, where the that's like the monkey's paw. That was the monkey's paw of the Chikara universe. Like the Eye of Tyr was basically an artifact with like this great power, and they did a lot of stuff with Delirious, where he was like possessed by it and things like that.
Delirious is a good one.
Well, he's a lizard man, so yeah, that's a little supernatural. He's a lizard man.
Oh, who's the Lucifer with the frozen caveman on the Independence?
Oh yeah. Unfrozen Caveman Wrestler.
Him.
Unfrozen Caveman Wrestler. Yeah. I know Steven in the chat brought up Lord Humongous, who was Sid Vicious at one point. Also, Jeff Van Kemp was Lord Humongous for quite a bit. That was a lot of those guys that came out of like the Mad Max movies, the post-apocalyptic things like the Road Warriors, and then Demolition was an offshoot of that. I'm trying to think of other ones here. I know we're missing a ton because there's been so many of these things.
So many.
I know.
Cross, depending on how you define him at some point. Carrying Cross, Killer Cross.
That's I think also a lot more in the vein of the besides that book that like lit up on fire that you did, the Keith Lee. That's more in the vein of like the Charles Mason, not almost like a cult leader, American Psycho. That leads me right to Sean O'Hare. People love this gimmick that Sean O'Hare did, where like people thought he was almost like the devil, where he's just like, go ahead, do whatever you want. Nothing like there were these really well produced skits where Sean O'Hare is like a good looking dude, big dude in a suit, and he's like just basically the devil on your shoulder. Like, go ahead, cheat on your wife. Who cares? Yeah. It's all about you.
Spooky Doink was good.
Yeah. Again, not supernatural, but definitely just an evil clown is always fun. But that's Sean O'Hare thing that. I'm not telling you anything you didn't already know. Such a good gimmick. It was just, again, the bell had the ring. And then Sean O'Hare had his own problems. You mentioned Mordecai. That didn't last long. But yeah, there was always guys, especially against and then Mordecai was Kevin Thorne. So there was always those guys like, okay, we need a guy that's like somewhat supernatural so we can go up against the Undertaker. That was always kind of a thing there.
Before we get out of here, let's plug what's going on over in Slatington this weekend.
PPW Shadows. Talk about spooky. Shadows with a nice spooky logo. It's going to be our big show on October 11th, the Slatington Expo Center. You can see some things on ppwwrestling.com, YouTube at PPW Entertainment. I got to start putting more matches up there. I think sometime soon we're going to put that Tony Depp and VSK match from last month up there. Phenomenal match. I might put that Golden Ticket Ladder match up there now that it's been on TV. But this month is going to be a fun one. We're going to have Carolina Cruz, former NXT star. She's going to be in action against Gem. Dio Bando defending the PPW heavyweight title against Chris Slade. We've got a San Juan street fight for the tag team titles, Counter-Strike and Los Toxicos. It's going to be a fun night of action. As always, it's always a fun time at PPW. And we're going to have new shirts. New shirts are coming out this month. And I believe in November or December, we're going to have the new cards. The new card set is going to be coming out. So lots of fun things happening in PPW land.
And then on the 18th, I will be doing some ring announcing at New Era Pro Wrestling. So you can come check us out at the Falcons Nest on the 18th. But we'll post and talk about that more as it comes. But from hellfire and brimstone to Gothic vampires and brain-melting puppets, Wrestling's Spooky Side reminds us that the business is just pure theater. A live-action comic book full of demons, angels, ghosts, mummies, and somehow it all ends on a small package pin. Because back
after you pull the guy's underwear off.
after you pull his underwear out. Because at the end of the day, wrestling is the only place on earth where a zombie can drop kick a mayor and it makes perfect sense. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to the ABJ podcast Tornado Tag with myself and BP Burke.
You know, time out. I just realized the mayor of Knox County once tombstoned the Secretary of Education. That's the thing that happened. That's the thing that happened.
Yeah, that happened. That 100% happened.
Unreal.
Yeah, and he might be against it, but I think he had some abortions in his career at some point in time too.
Well, it wasn't that one guy's fault. That's all I know.
It wasn't his fault. It was somebody else's. But yeah, Tornado Tag is something we'll try to keep going on Thursday nights for you guys. It all really depends. Sometimes we may be doing it in person. Sometimes it may be live. Sometimes it may be a thing where we're not live this week. And if we're not live, we're probably filming for you guys to check out next week because we might have some old faces come back. I think we are going back to more topic-based again. Well, not thinking. We are going back to more topic-based again.
I got one I'm very excited about we're going to do soon.
Yes, I pulled up some photos for it already. But and then we'll also, and like I said, I'll try to do more recent modern day stuff or current wrestling, but they'll be in the form of like shorts and reels. So make sure you're following on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube here. We'll put them up on as well. But that's going to do it for us here at Tornado Tag. We'll see you guys next time. We're out of here.